And good evening to you at 6. I'm Brian Blakely. Cracking down on speeders has come to a screeching halt here in the Queen City.
And I'm Alicia Barnes, where our reporters right now revealing the growing scope of the ongoing Queen City News investigation under the radar.
Well, that investigation now has attorneys and drivers scrambling after the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department had to take more than half of their radar and lidar detectors off of the streets.
And we have the other exclusive side of that story that the city did not tell you yesterday. Our coverage is twofold tonight. Chief Investigator Jody Barr has the only interview with the former city employee who told the city it had a problem months ago.
And our Derek Dellinger spent the day at the Mecklenburg County Courthouse, where the entire justice system is trying to figure out what this means, and we begin with Jody's investigation.
Well, this is a letter from recommendation and termination. They were saying that I didn't have a good performance. It was unsatisfactory.
Tony Torres spent a little more than 5 years at the City of Charlotte's radio shop. He worked on fire and police radios and helped handle the annual certifications for CMPD, the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office, and Matthews Police. The problem, neither Torres nor any of his fellow technicians had the FCC license needed to perform the work on the speed units. He says his two supervisors who held the FCC license were signing off on the forms certifying they'd performed the work.
So I called the North Carolina Department of Justice Standards Division and talked to the head person there and said, hey, this is what we're doing. You know, can you explain to me, you're the ones that write these forms up. Is this what your intent was when we do the testing? And he said, well, no. He says, if our understanding is if you're doing the testing, that you have a license and whoever signs that form is the one doing the testing. I said, well, that's not how that works here. And he said, well, who do you work for? And at the time, of course, I said City of Charlotte, and his reaction was like, wow, you know, like, okay. That's really a big deal.
The state directed Torres to North Carolina General Statute 8-50.2, which states in part, all radio, microwave, laser, and other electronic speed measuring instruments shall be tested for accuracy by a technician possessing at least a general radio telephone operator license. But long before this, Torres was already embroiled in months-long battles with his division leadership. He'd already filed complaints about what he viewed as problematic work in the shop, something he says the city used to build a case to fire him last month.
Because people felt like they were being rubbed wrong because they were being criticized. I wasn't criticized, and I thought I should have been thanked. Hey, you found this issue, you corrected it, now this officer's not going to have a problem, great job. I never heard that, ever. You know, it was more, oh, you're criticizing people, you're putting your peers down, you know, you're coming to us with problems instead of solutions. I felt like I was made a target. I wasn't treated fairly, and I brought it up several times, and it never went in my favor. Obviously, I'm sitting here with you because I was terminated over bringing up something that now the city's, you know, acknowledging, hey, you know, this is the case.
Last August, Torres says he took a leave of absence from the city. During that time, he got his FCC license to make sure he was in compliance to perform the radar work when he returned last month.
Until, you know, I started studying to get my own license, and I knew what was going to be expected of me. I knew they were going to have the same expectation that we were doing to sign off on other people's work, and I didn't feel that that was ethically correct anymore because I found out it wasn't. So I went to my supervision when I had my hearing, and I told them all this, but they decided to terminate me anyways. And then accused me of falsifying documents when I told them, you know, I was never certified that it wasn't my responsibility to sign those or even do the work. So I presented that saying, look, if, you know, I go back, you know, don't expect me to sign off on other people's work because I'm showing you that that's not right. You can't do this.
And you brought that fact to the city?
Yeah, I brought that to their attention.
And did you expect that the city would say, hey, you're right?
I thought so. I was very naive to think so.
Torres says on January 3rd, the day he returned to work, city bosses told him they planned to fire him. 3 days later, he had a pre-termination hearing where the city terminated him. In that meeting, Torres says he once again told the city of his concerns about how the city radio shop was handling those radar and lidar certifications. What did they say?
Well, they heard what I had to say. But they didn't tell me if they believed me. I found that out when I got my termination letter. You know, I mean, I talked to everyone involved, you know, down to the people who make the forms and put the verbiage on there. And then you're talking about the you know, state level. You know, you're not talking about somebody next door asking them their opinion. You know, I went straight to the source, and apparently they didn't. That wasn't good enough.
5 days after Tony Torres contacted us, we filed open records requests for the city's radar and lidar certifications. Instead of responding to us, the city called a press conference on February 15th, admitting the complaints Tony Torres raised were valid.
So that scenario is we have technicians in some cases doing the work signed off by certified supervisors, but they themselves may not have been certified.
City bosses claim they found out about this on January 31st, but Torres says he told the city months ago. Neither CMPD nor the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office pulled their radar and lidar units from service until last week and started reviewing the tickets and criminal charges stemming from them.
We must hold ourselves accountable to the fact that we did not adhere to the state requirements. We believe this issue started as an incorrect interpretation of the requirements back in 2008 and has become a standard practice. The city has started an investigation internally on how we began this and how we will continue to ensure that it's done correctly in the future.
Tony Torres says he came to us last month thinking this was his best shot to ensure the city fixed what he'd uncovered. You made a decision to contact us. Did you feel as though that was your avenue of last resort?
Pretty much. You know, I felt like I had the truth in my hands and no one believed me. And I'm not doing this to try to get back at any type of organization or any single individual. You know, I just want the truth to be known. And
do you believe the city, somebody like you, should have been promoted instead of terminated?
Yeah, I think so. They watched me walk out the door, and I don't believe they had any remorse for it at all. It's really sad to be treated like this. I can't explain to you the feeling I had walking out of that building.
Torres hopes this is a lesson for the city to listen to the people it trusts the most to carry out its mission.
They're trying to fix it by offering me my job back. But, you know, what about all this time? What about it, you know, everything that I told them? I mean, there's no reason for anybody to be treated like this. There's no, you know, when you're a whistleblower and you try to go to your managers and supervision to protect public communications, I mean, officers and firefighters, you know, we work on their radios and certify their equipment, and you try to protect them, and then they make you out to be the bad person. I just don't understand it.
So, Jody, the city offered Tony Torres his job back yesterday. Does he plan to go back to work tomorrow at the radio shop?
Well, Brian, he just called me just before we came out here and told me that the city told him not to show up in the morning. He tells me the human resources representative told him the city will make a decision next week about his future, but the city, although they're putting him on paid leave for now, not to come back in the morning.
Okay, so just to be able to further explain this, didn't they send him a letter yesterday then saying, hey, come back to work in the morning?
They did do that. But again, he said that the city's human resources called him this afternoon. Yesterday, they told him, hey, here's a letter. We want you to come back tomorrow morning. We're going to pay you for your 6 weeks back pay. But I mean, at this point, with what developed this afternoon, who knows what's going to happen next with him and whether he'll ever go back to work for the city.
So do you think that has anything to do with the fact that your story aired last night?
That's exactly what Tony Torres told me a few minutes ago.
All right, Jody Barr in the studio with that part of the story right now. Queen City News anchor Derek Dellinger continues our coverage tonight. And Derek, this has caused some fallout for Mecklenburg County Traffic Court, but not in the way people might think, right?
Yeah, you might think these revelations might lead to a mass of dismissals, but that is not happening. In fact, accused speeders are being given a choice. They can continue their case, they can contest their case, or they can reduce the charge in their case. Behind the doors of the Mecklenburg County Courthouse, there was an acknowledgement of the radar certification problems. Cameras were not allowed in court, but we looked in on the cases. Anyone who had a speeding ticket was made aware of the issue with the radar guns. Officials we spoke with off camera say cases are going to be addressed as they come, and for traffic ticket attorneys, they say the cases are already coming in.
This is an extreme mess on a already mess that's over there.
Mark Chitana is with Chitana Meredith, which deals with traffic cases like the ones that are now in the spotlight because of the radar certification issue the Queen City News exposed. The last day or so has been a whirlwind.
I've already had numerous calls from clients that passed and clients who have tickets coming up. hey, did you see this? You're on top of this.
Jatan says dismissals may likely not be the end result of the issues because officer observations are taken into account, possibly even dash cam video. Speed devices only corroborate. But he noted that speed stops that fall under this that may result in them finding drugs or other illegal activity happening may also be affected too.
Gave me the option to, talk over it with an attorney first before handling it, or just going ahead and handling it now.
This man did not want to be identified, but was in court for a speeding ticket. He knew about the issue, but he was ready to pay and move on.
I'll take what I can get as far as the improper equipment. I'm kind of glad about the situation. It kind of helped me out on today.
Jatan says this will hit more than just the people that are on the docket now.
This is just something that affects everyone because maybe there's somebody out there, but there's not many that walk around that have never probably got a speeding ticket or a traffic ticket in their life.
You may be wondering if you have an old traffic ticket, if you can possibly get it reconsidered. Well, we asked Jatan about that. He told us that you can file a motion for appropriate relief, but he added everything in this story is still in its very early stages, and so there is no word yet on how everything will play out. We're live in Uptown. Derek Dellinger, Queen City News.